When a British Prime Minister boards a plane for Beijing for the first time in 7 years, what does that reveal about shifting alliances, economic pressure, and the future balance between Washington, London, and China? With global trade under strain and major powers recalibrating, Keir Starmer's visit carries implications far beyond a single diplomatic trip. This video unpacks what is really at stake and why the timing matters. If the visit succeeds, Britain could unlock new investment and market access at a moment of domestic economic stress. If it fails, London risks alienating both Beijing and Washington while gaining little in return. If it escalates tensions with allies, it could accelerate a wider realignment among US partners. Each outcome reshapes how middle powers navigate an increasingly fragmented global order. Starmer's trip marks the first visit by a UK leader to China since 2018, ending a prolonged diplomatic freeze. He is scheduled to meet President Xi Jinping and is accompanied by the business secretary and dozens of corporate leaders. Their objective is straightforward: attract Chinese investment, expand access for British finance, automobiles, and whiskey, and position Britain within a Chinese economy that is no longer only an export platform but also a vast consumer market. The backdrop is a relationship that has swung sharply over the past decade. In 2015, London spoke openly of a golden era with Beijing, symbolized by high-profile state visits and investment deals. That period ended as concerns grew over Hong Kong's autonomy, cybersecurity, espionage, and China's alignment with Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. Subsequent conservative governments restricted Chinese participation in telecommunications and nuclear energy projects, sharply narrowing cooperation. Starmer inherited this strained relationship when Labour entered office 18 months ago. His government ordered a comprehensive review of China policy and adopted what it describes as a pragmatic approach. The strategy aims to protect national security while maintaining dialogue and economic ties. This balance reflects Britain's structural position, a services-heavy economy seeking growth, but deeply embedded in Western security networks. Domestic pressures amplify the stakes. Britain remains the world's sixth largest economy, yet growth has lagged and living costs remain high. Starmer's approval ratings have slipped, and Labour trails the Reform Party in some polls. Internal unease within his party has made economic delivery politically urgent, turning foreign investment into a domestic issue rather than an abstract diplomatic goal. The international context is equally complex. Starmer's outreach to Beijing comes as relations with the United States show strain. Although Britain secured a trade deal easing tariffs on key automotive and aerospace exports, US policy under President Donald Trump has unsettled allies. Tariffs, disputes over NATO burden sharing, and unilateral positions on Ukraine and Greenland have injected uncertainty into transatlantic coordination. In recent days, Starmer has been more openly critical of Washington's rhetoric, signaling limits to accommodation. His visit to China follows similar trips by Canada's Prime Minister and precedes a planned visit by Germany's Chancellor. Together, these moves suggest a broader pattern among US allies seeking to hedge against unpredictability by diversifying diplomatic and economic relationships. Yet engagement with Beijing carries risks. Trump has already threatened severe tariffs on allies deepening trade with China, citing national security concerns. Britain's approval of a large new Chinese embassy in London has fueled criticism from lawmakers who warn of espionage and political influence. The government argues the decision reflects diplomatic norms, but the debate underscores persistent mistrust. Security issues extend beyond embassies. Starmer faces scrutiny over an agreement transferring sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, intended to safeguard a key UK-US military base from legal challenge. Critics argue the move could open space for Chinese influence in the Indian Ocean, a claim the government disputes. Washington's mixed signals on the deal highlight how alliance management has become more complicated. Human rights remain another sensitive dimension. former British officials and activists argue that London should clearly articulate differences with Beijing on issues such as Hong Kong and minority treatment. The challenge for Starmer is to raise concerns without derailing economic objectives, a task requiring calibrated language rather than public confrontation. One possible scenario is that the visit delivers tangible investment commitments and establishes a more predictable framework for engagement. In this case, Britain gains economic momentum while signaling that cooperation and disagreement can coexist. This outcome could encourage other middle powers to pursue similarly nuanced approaches. A second scenario sees political backlash overshadowing economic gains. If Washington responds with punitive measures or domestic critics frame the trip as a security failure, Starmer's room for maneuver narrows. Such an outcome would reinforce bloc-based alignment and reduce incentives for diplomatic experimentation. The broader geopolitical consequence lies in normalization of selective engagement. As US alliances adjust to a less predictable anchor, countries like Britain may increasingly compartmentalize relationships, separating trade, security, and values into parallel tracks. This does not dissolve alliances, but it complicates coordination and crisis signaling. China, for its part, views these visits as opportunities to stabilize ties with advanced economies amid slowing growth and strategic competition. Hosting Western leaders projects confidence and counters narratives of isolation, while incremental economic openings can attract capital and technology. As Starmer meets Xi, the immediate outcomes may be modest. Symbolism, tone, and continuity may matter more than headline deals. Investors and diplomats alike will watch whether commitments translate into follow-through and whether rhetoric remains consistent after the visit ends. In the end, this trip illustrates the pressures facing governments navigating overlapping dependencies. Power today is exercised not only through alignment, but through the ability to manage divergence without rupture. Viewers should watch subsequent policy decisions, not just photographs, to judge whether Britain's recalibration endures. The balance between economic necessity and strategic caution will define the next phase of UK-China relations. As global politics fragment, such balancing acts may become the norm rather than the exception. Whether they stabilize the system or introduce new fault lines remains an open question, shaped by choices made quietly as much as those announced publicly.